Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Bailey. This is the Wildfire Cluster session, Visions for the Future of Wildfire Data Science. We have three guests, Nick Maggio from University of Oregon, Claire Sturm from San Diego Supercomputer Center and Wildfire, and Marissa Christensen from the Climate Wildfire Institute. This session has been designed to kind of show a variety of strategies for how we engage in the future of wildfire data science. We're clearly in a space where we have decision support needs that communities are having to make on a frankly, yearly basis. We're confronting problems, and we, in parallel, have disaster management crises where all of a sudden communities are required to make life and death decisions. The decision support frameworks that we have available to us are evolving quickly, and this session is taking place summer 2025, where we are also in a space where many of the federal resources have been significantly disrupted by human resource issues, where people who are the stewards of long-term data assets have been separated from their positions. And we're in a place where, as ESIP as a civil society entity, may have an increased role in creating continuity in our data infrastructure. So the three talks that we have today explore, well, I see this as different scales. Nick Maggio's project is a specific deployment of what we have seen are become mission critical assets for fire management, being the live fire cameras. Claire Sturm's with Wildfire Consortium is, I see it as a system of systems where it is an incubator of emerging strategies for evaluating wildfire risks. And the Climate Wildfire Institute has been a convener of social benefits from the data science community, and the products that CWI has produced have been exceptionally powerful articulations of user stories for various communities. We're fortunate yesterday. Brianna Pagan's plenary explored a lot of the issues with, her personal experience from the Palisades fire as a data science professional, and that was, it was really enlightening. And I think it will be build on today's session will build on that view. One of the things that I really want to emphasize for the wildfire cluster is that we are working on data science projects that are beyond the disaster mode, and that there are other views of wildfire where, as we adapt to build wildfire adapted communities, the data services that we provide allow people to make better decisions in difficult times. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nick Maggio from the Oregon Hazards Alliance.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Let me get the presentation up. Okay. I'll let somebody who knows what they're doing share the screen.
Do you have any videos?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Let's see. For some reason, it doesn't like it. All right, I think. Okay.
All right, great. Well, thank you all so much for having us here. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about the work that we do at the Oregon Hazards Lab. The Oregon Hazards Lab didn't advance.
I just like press down button.
Yeah, it's advancing on this screen, but not on that one.
You get a different job. Okay. Sure. Okay. Is that on the Zoom? Not yet.
Can you enable editing? Since it's good for you?
Share this one. All right, how about now?
Perfect. All right. Yeah, so, so the Oregon Hazards Lab, we're a research laboratory housed at the University of Oregon and part of the Earth Sciences Department, but we're pretty atypical for a university research group in that our raison d'etre is really running real-time public safety networks that span the state of Oregon, and this includes multiple projects, both inside and outside the wildfire sphere. I'll mention briefly that we have over 300 points of presence that we have built across the state of Oregon. These are physical installations where we have what we talk about, the 4 Ps: poles, power, packets, and permits. So we've managed to get permission to be at these places, power devices, and figured out how to bring back data from all of these locations across the state of Oregon. And we really view this as an extensible network. It's really the underlying technology here is a way to deploy sensors into the built environment, regardless of what the sensor type might be, and then bring back that data for public safety benefit. So some projects that benefit from this are Shake Alert, the earthquake early warning system that is present across the West Coast here. So if there's an earthquake, hopefully, I'm not going to tempt fate here, but there were an earthquake today, you would get an alert on your phone via WIA or via, if you're on an Android, it's built into the operating system, or if you have the MyShake app, you get an alert through that. You'd get several seconds of early warning before that shaking was felt, depending upon your location. We're also involved in the SAGE Continuum project. This is a more scientific workflow where we're doing edge AI compute built into a scheduled platform. But the project I'm here to talk about today is our work in the wildfire space. So over the last several years, we've been deploying wildfire cameras with built-in AI technology across the state of Oregon. So here are some examples of what one of these sites might look like. So again, we find some vertical asset that could be a communications tower, it could be an old abandoned fire lookout, or it could be a bare earth installation where there is no infrastructure. And we go out and we do whatever work is necessary in order to power devices and bring that data back. This has resulted in us building out a large private wireless network that spans most of the state of Oregon at this point, where we can bring back data in a controlled, redundant, high availability environment and have confidence in the cybersecurity of that workflow. So when we get these cameras out, it doesn't do anybody any good to just have a camera out there. We have to get the data to the end users. And who are the end users? We view the end users as both the public and the fire and emergency services. And that's a critical aspect of the work that we do, in that we believe all of this data should be available to the public. There was a time when this was all done within the university environments. We found that it got to the scale and complexity at which point it was not well suited to being a university-only project anymore. And we have partnered with a private company, Alert West, in order to be our SaaS vendor to present this data to the public, to give first responders command and control functionality on these cameras, and to deliver AI alerts to those first responders out in the field and in command and detection centers across the country. So through this software as a service agreement, we're able to do the two missions that we've really talked about, which is having a public-facing interface for all this wildfire data, as well as this private credentialed side of the system that's only available to the fire services. So on the slide here on the right, you can see the homepage, the landing page for alertwest.live. This is available to anybody. You can go there right now and you can interact with these cameras as a public citizen, and you can see a surprising amount of wildfire intelligence in real time on this platform. The public have access to the maps and the GIS layers that provide a lot of wildfire intelligence. This includes access to the Irwin database, all of the thermal satellites, aviation assets that are flagged as fire specific, et cetera, as well as tile views of the cameras. You can put up your own little wildfire intelligence center by having a tile view that's specific to your area. And this really is helping us to develop a culture of wildfire preparedness across the West Coast by putting out in front of people what is currently going on in their own communities. They get access to individual camera views in which interface they can get live playbacks. In the top left here is the live stream. So this is an image that updates on the order of 10 seconds. Some are a little bit faster than that, but all of them are at least an update every 10 seconds. A map that shows what you're looking at, what the field of view of the camera is. And then at the bottom, there's a 360-degree panorama. And this is a really interesting, I think, key aspect of the Alert West system, which is that they briefly interrupt this live feed. And in fact, if it's at the 10-second interval, they don't even need to interrupt it. And they'll spin the camera 360 degrees at a zoom level of 1 every 2 minutes. So every 2 minutes, they're acquiring a full 360-degree panorama of the environment around them. This will come back into play in a minute. This helps people to, again, understand the conditions, the threats, and the severity, and see what's happening in their own communities. So that's the public side. On the private side, if you are an emergency manager, if you are in the fire services, the emergency services, or if you're in a utility space and you are responsible for risk management, you can apply to have credentialed access to the system. That unlocks a new set of tools. And the first of those is the receiving of alerts. So you can opt in to having alerts delivered to you in a geographically specific area. You can upload a polygon, you can draw it on a map, and you can say, if there's a fire in this area, I want to know about it. And you can even scope that down to saying, I only really want to know about it between 8 and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, for example, if you're working a shift at a detection center. This also gives you command and control functionality on sets of cameras that are specific to your geolocation. And you can get these alerts delivered via phone, via text, or via email, and they'll be geotagged and specific to the incident. The way that these alerts are generated goes back to that 360-degree panorama that I mentioned a minute ago. So every 2 minutes, again, the camera gets spun 360 degrees. That image, that stitched together image of the environment, gets fed into a computer vision algorithm, and smoke is detected during the day. At night, the cameras operate in a near infrared mode between the 700 and 1100 nanometer wavelengths. And there's a separate algorithm that's responsible for detection at night that looks for anomalous thermal activity in the environment. So the algorithm goes through and it flags these potential fire incidents. That then gets sent to a human-in-the-loop detection center down in Chico, California, and every single one of these gets validated and geolocated by 2 separate individuals before an alert gets generated in the system and sent out to the end users. This is a critical aspect of the system in that it ensures high signal and noise ratios on these alerts, and it reduces alert fatigue. Something that we see in a lot of AI-derived alert systems is that people are excited about them for a week, they get bored of them in a month, and they get annoyed at them after 2 months and they turn them off. That is not the case here, and the human-in-the-loop is really key to that, maintaining this as a truly operational tool. This is a great example of where AI can really be of benefit. Only 1 in about 800,000 images that get captured by the system generate an alert. That's the kind of level where if you're having a human being look at these things, they get tired, they get frustrated, they get bored, and they lose concentration. And so having an AI system that can bring the important images to the forefront is really a big benefit in this environment. So I mentioned the human in the loop, the detection center. In the center here, you can see the output of the AI algorithm in that it generates a best estimate of where the fire locations are. Those get fed to that human in the loop data detection center, and then that gets geolocated, and that's what ends up being the information that gets sent out to the end users. So in 2024, we ran this system from May until December. And during that time, we generated well over 3,000 alerts. These are individual fires. So if a fire causes multiple alerts because it's seen by multiple cameras, those all get binned together into one incident, and that's what we're seeing here. Over 2,000 of these incidents occurred between the months of June and October, which is what we consider to be peak fire season in Oregon. So this is real actionable data that's being created. And I want to walk you through just one of these incidents and the timeline that resulted in from the alert that was created. So this is the Pine Fire that occurred on October 7th, 2024. So here's a video playback from that panorama, those stitched together images that shows the progress of this fire from about 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. on that day. And this fire burned for several days, but it importantly did not impact any of the built environment. It did not impact any of the structures. It did not impact the scientific observation center that was on the mountain directly adjacent to this fire location. So I just want to walk through the timeline here of what occurred. So at 15:52 hours, we got the first AI hit on the system. So the panorama is being generated, the algorithm's going through looking for smoke, and it spots a potential fire, and it assigns a confidence level to it. When that confidence level exceeds 0.3, that's when it gets elevated to a human being. So at 15:53, the first AI alert was delivered. So sub 2 minutes between when the algorithm detected it and when a human being vetted it and when an email or text went out to the responsible agencies to know about this. By 15:59, the fire was in Wildcat, so it had been entered into the Wildland Fire database. By 16:11, we see the first dispatcher from the Oregon CODIC, Central Oregon Dispatch Center, steering the camera. Now, this doesn't mean that they weren't looking at the feeds before that. It just means that they found a reason that they needed to further move the camera to understand what was going on in the environment. And if you look back at the playback, you'll see that there are actually multiple ignition points kicking off at the same time in this incident. So they're evaluating all these different ignition points remotely as this event is unfolding. At 16:29, the first air tanker is en route. At 16:55, the first Phos-Check drop occurs. So approximately 1 hour from when the AI algorithm detected the fire to when this drop occurred. And this is what we see again and again throughout the summer at incidents like this across Eastern Oregon. The last thing I would like to talk about is the public API. So this is perhaps the most unsung hero of the whole system. So in addition to just being able to interface with this system through the Alert West website, there's a public-facing API that allows integration into other platforms. And this was highlighted in Brianna's excellent plenary talk yesterday, where she talked about viewing the university-owned camera systems through WatchDuty. This is what enables that integration, is the public-facing API. And we work with Intera, EGP, Wildfire, OEMs, the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, FAA, and multiple agencies to help them ingest this data into their own intelligence platforms. And we do this freely. It's free of cost. And I should also mention that access to the system is free of cost to any of the end users. This is underwritten by federal grants, state funding, and investments from the utilities. I will say that to date, I don't know of any scientific workflows that are integrating this into their work. This is all essentially public safety. And this is a way that we kind of flipped the script as a university research group, in that we do public safety first and are trying to find ways to do science with that data second. And that's part of the reason I'm here today. And so I just want to leave you with this last image, which is a collage from our site at Adel, Oregon, up on Fish Creek Rim. So on the right is the tower, on the left is the Alert West feed, and on the top is the panorama that, again, we're capturing every 2 minutes. And I just asked the question, what scientific questions would you ask if you had access to this data? So in the foreground, you can see these wonderful transitory lakes that occur out in this part of the world that is called the Oregon Outback. These lakes are there not necessarily every year. They typically disappear over the dry season. They may not. And we're capturing that on a cadence of every 2 minutes for hopefully decades. What questions would you like to ask that this information could help with? So I'll leave you with that, and thank you for your attention. And if there are any questions, I think we're taking them now. Yeah. Oh, I think we have a microphone. Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. I really enjoy your talk.
Oh, thank you very much.
Is this on?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I say this is amazing work. I really enjoy the talk, and I do see potentially there will be a lot of applications out of that. I really want to thank you for amazing work. I'm from Canada, you know. Forest fire in West Canada is certainly something, you know, it becomes a new normal, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious, like, I know there are a lot of work behind the scenes. So from financial side, how much it costs to get one station up?
It really depends on how much built environment we can take advantage of. If it's a location where there's already a vertical structure, there's internet, there's power that's reliable, we can do it on the order of $20,000 for an installation. If we're needing to go out and build everything from the ground up, it's $100,000 to build a solar power station, to build a tower, to do the groundwork, and to keep that in a reliable operational framework. Yeah.
Okay, is there like I see the alert system, is that like a free service, or do you need to pay for to get?
The alert system is free, yes.
Okay.
So we don't charge any of the end users for access to the system. It's being underwritten by grants from BLM, USFS, FEMA, and then direct funding from the state of Oregon.
Oh, okay, that's great. I certainly will follow up with more detail.
Yeah, wonderful. And thank you for your great plenary yesterday.
Yeah, and we'll have one more talk, or one more question, but then we're going to have more time to talk at the end.
Thanks, really great talk, great work. So it looks like you took advantage of an existing cell tower in this case.
It's actually an Oregon Department of Transportation tower.
Oh, okay. To your point about pre-existing built infrastructure. So I'm going to sneak in two quick questions. What would the typical lag time be for the human in the loop review?
And we see that it's consistently sub 5 minutes. The denser the camera network, the better that's going to be. So in Oregon, we have disparate densities, you know, and to give you an idea of scale, we have 60 some odd camera sites in Oregon. There are over 1,500 in California. There are over 100 in Hawaii alone. You know, it's an ongoing effort to create this density that is necessary for a truly robust system. Now, that being said, Eastern Oregon has a very different topography than California does, and one camera site can cover a lot of distance, but that may have impacts on the human in the loop verification.
Got it, thanks. And finally, are you having any interaction with air quality oriented people who are trying to track the exposures from the plumes?
Yes, this is a perennial question, is what can we add to the system, and air quality seems to be the top request for what can we add to these sites. I will mention that typically this comes in the form of, I've got a purple air sensor, can you add my purple air sensor to the site? That is a challenging individual sensor to integrate. We standardize largely around PoE, and so the need for wireless, the need for the typical power requirements, and then sometimes a cheap sensor can be expensive, you know, if you have to go out and maintain it and maintain high uptime. So we're still in the search for a good air quality sensor that could be added to this environment and that would be operationalized in a way that works with our existing workflows.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, and our next presenter is Claire Sturm from the Wildfire Consortium.
Are you seeing it? Okay. All right, cool. Oh. Presenter view, okay. There we go. Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you for ignoring the magician behind the scene there. Hello, everyone. My name is Claire Sturm, and I'm excited to be talking with you all about the Wildfire Science and Technology Commons. I'm a project manager with the Societal Computing and Innovation Lab, where Wildfire is stationed along with several other of our projects out of UC San Diego in affiliation with the San Diego Supercomputer Center. So with the Wildfire Commons, this is a new initiative that we started back in October. What we're looking at here is the space that we can start accelerating our technical landscape, where right now we see a lot of bottlenecks that we've faced and we currently face in our ecosystems, and how can we bring things together in a more equitable way, open data, open science, all practice in one place, so we can actually do clear innovations as a group in an effective space. As I mentioned, those bottlenecks, we've had over 10 years of experience working with wildland fire research, coming from a variety of projects in our lab like Burn Pro 3D and some of our fire mapping, where we're taking data from our sensors out in the field and actually putting them in place for active and preventative burns. So when we're doing that work, we do see a lack of standards within our data processes today. How can we understand quickly what standard a specific innovation might be following, especially if it's coming from industry? It can be a lot more muddled. We also look at access. How can we quickly gain understanding of our solutions that exist today with data and models compared to the rate of science and innovation scale? And the hardship around evaluating all these things is often you need an expert or you need a colleague to be recommending you the right pathway in order to have these adoptions. So how can we better utilize data and science to really advance our fire tech solutions? And this is where we've come in with a grant from NIST, and it's really to establish this community platform and expert network to accelerate the innovation, foster open science and open data, and really promote that transparency between all of these solutions. We're also looking at how can we scale this beyond our own academic and research purposes, which is today we're in this prototyping phase, but we're looking long-term, how can we do better integration with industry, better integration with nonprofits to be able to forge those coalitions. Our team is led by Ilkay Altintash, and this is where we've had a great group coming together to think through these challenges, both in the lens of partnership, the development of the actual cyber infrastructure, and thinking long-term of how do we make this a usable product as well. So our current activities today are building an expert tool, and I'm going to be speaking a little bit more about some visualization there of what we're launching. We also have the core Wildfire Commons that we're excited to be able to open up to the community on July 31st and really engage everyone in utilizing this platform. We have case studies where we're taking our own active research and applying them as well within the Wildfire Commons. We have a space right now on 3D, 4D fuel vegetation modelers, where we had a convening back in May just to spend time on their practices and how they can utilize this type of platform to better their cross innovations. We have another case study that we're planning that's thinking about digital twins within Wildfire. We also focus in on pathfinders. So this is innovations that are within the community today, active research projects that are looking for this type of platform to really do their work. And finally, with our working groups who have been such a facilitator for how we can actually build this platform, we're looking at the future planning of phases for the established framework and future years. So what makes up the Wildfire Commons? We have 3 core features, 2 that are launching again on July 31st, and 1 that's coming up in a December release. So I'll be talking through the expert network tool first, then our community marketplace, how it is established today with a prototype, and then how we're going to scale it, and our FireForge platform, which is really taking a full workflow and pulling it into the compute to actually run that analysis directly on the system. So our expert network today is the space that we can come in and share who we are as individuals within the wildland fire space. So when you're coming in to establish yourself, you're able to identify what expertise you're bringing to the table, what projects you're actively working on. We all get the noise of acronyms and how do they actually connect back with our core projects, our core institutions, so demystifying that a bit. We also look at our space to be a way to connect with those folks in the field that we can actually pull innovation, pull expertise from. As a logged in member of the expert tool, you'll be able to see the email, the connection information that that person is sharing. But as a non-logged in person, you just see a high-level profile about them. So we're trying to keep that security as well around how we can interconnect for those that have joined in the system. So that way we don't have people that aren't aware of the mission, the project, the actual core practices, just trying to outreach without really buying into making sure we're practicing good standards. Our expert network also enables us to do some good searching around the expertise within the community and being able to do follow-ups as well with some good forum practices and other solutions are in the tool itself. I mentioned those principles around our community, so how can we collaborate as an effective network, being able to support common vocabularies and sustaining our open data and open science. We also want to keep a clear eye towards defending data sovereignty, especially for our tribal communities, and making sure that they have a safe space to be able to utilize this tool for their work, and also being able to collaborate with other folks in the space appropriately if they have those partnerships. I mentioned our marketplace, which is this growing space that we're launching with an initial prototype, but going to really have a full, robust solution in December. This is where we can come together to really take our data, models, and services, list them in a community catalog with metadata around these solutions, identify how you can start accessing them or making the right partnership to have that access. Nick shared a lot of information about that public API, but there's also a deeper integration and connection network that folks might be interested in working with the Hazards Lab on. So this is where we can take a marketplace and really identify the step-by-step guidance on how you use the public API today, and more guidance as well on the other services the lab is offering. And I talked a little bit about this compute and workflow space, and this is our FireForge platform. This is really the bread and butter of where we can take the work that we're doing on analysis of data, and bettering our models, and put it into practice in this space. It comes with connections to the community catalog, being able to have data, scripts, and services pulled together in a streamlined workflow, and then launching into this compatible space for compute. And we've integrated the National Research Platform for available compute for our research and educator community. And this is a great way to tap into the nation's resources around available cycles on high-performance computing and supercomputers that are making this space possible. So what we expect for users coming into this space, we expect a little bit of discover session, just making sure full appreciation of what is in the catalog today and what's missing. And this missing piece might also be things, products, materials that you all are working on and managing that you would like to integrate into the catalog itself. We have a registration process for data models and services that just forms our metadata around what it is that you all are doing and how it can be integrated with other solutions. Once you've done a step of collection, you're able to then generate a workspace in a project that is collaborative. So if I need to share it with somebody that's on the other side of the nation and maybe enable them to have access to these things that my lab might not typically enable me to do with some general workspaces I have available in my compute infrastructure, it at least enables us to work together in one streamlined space that we can all tap into that compute. And then the final product being storage as well. So when we do our analysis, when we've run our data, when we've looked at an actual image of can we define our vegetation and identify what level of vegetation we're looking at in the field, I want to capture that product of work and be able to share it out, whether it's in a paper to be more public for reproducibility, or it might be private still because we're working on that analysis. So I just want to share it with my collaborators and make sure they see what results I found. And we have a little bit of a workflow here, thinking about our TLS processing. And this is a project out of Wildfire on the immersive forest and working with Intellimon. So our collaborator, Letitia Lee, is coming in with this challenge. She's thinking about how she can begin preparing the data that she has and also the data that's within the existing catalog. She's going to find TLS and ALS data and pull it into a curated space so she can continue looking at it and reviewing it as kind of a pin in these solutions, as I want to keep a follow-up on them. Now, Isaac Neely has a script that can take all of those data points and start doing a definition of those vegetation items. And so he's going to present that script to Letitia, and they can build a project as a group to be able to share what they're working on in one seamless space, being able to have Letitia bring the data, Isaac bring the script, plug it into a workflow, and then they can actually see the results of that compute taking place in the lower right-hand corner of where we're seeing our vegetation from an actual cycle and taking it into that shareable link. So this is our kind of case that we look at, but what does it look like in the FireForge platform? So I start with a view of my own space and being able to see the workspaces I've designed, the projects I have as my collaborators. I can then take a workspace and again, pulling in that data, pulling in those scripts directly into the workflow. And we have right after that a launch into a Jupyter Hub notebook. So we can actually take it all compiled together, pull it into our notebook, and then select what kind of compute, because I'm a researcher, what compute I need in order to run this process. For our industry collaborators, we do have a light version of a server available so they can also have this experience, but we're looking to extend the platform so they can bring in their own compute with AWS and Google and other solutions. So at the end of the day, I have my Jupyter notebook. I'm able to pull in the clone of the GitHub. I'm able to pull in the data and actually start running my analysis directly. And we understand that this takes a little bit of kind of massage work to understand what resources you have, how can we integrate them together using the FireForge platform. So we do have office hours established in August where we're going to open up one-on-ones just to see what resources you have and you would like to try to bring in as a test bed. So how can you participate with the Wildfire Commons? I would invite you all to join us for our full launch on the 31st. This is our kind of preview session together to hear from the community, hear from the feedback. And we would like you on that day to join the expert network, dive right in, being able to create your profile and share with us who you are and your expertise. Start utilizing that FireForge platform where we can pull in the data, the scripts, the services all in one space, and even listing those known items that you all have that you would like to share with the community. And participate in case studies. If you're a modeler, if you would like to talk to us about models, we love that. We're happy to spend some time there with you. And then, of course, thinking about those extensions within the community of how do you share what your good work is doing as a Pathfinder project and participating in working groups as well to even support the future visions of this framework. We do want to thank our partners because without them, we wouldn't be in a place to actually grow this solutioning and hear from all the voices within the community. So they've been a real attribute on how we can extend this forward. And with that, I'll close with thank you and see if there are any questions.
We have a question online from Dave Jones.
Oh, hi, can you hear me okay? Hi, Claire.
Hello.
I'll just turn on my camera so I can wave. This sounds really great. I'm going to join it, and you know, we have a small business, and I'm wondering how you view private sector partners, because we work very closely with taking science data and delivering it to people who don't really understand data or have access to it, you know, either in video formats or through GeoCollaborate. And I'm wondering if you have any sort of testbed idea or approach so we could work with some of the data, see how it works, and get your expertise for how we can quickly identify major wildfires that are that may be threatening communities, that we can turn into video updates showing the science and explaining to people what the situation is.
Absolutely. This is a great question. And we have established this system so it is collaborative for industry as well. We have with our launch a prototype server that you can actually do all of the features mentioned. We invite you into the expert network. We invite you into that marketplace and also utilizing the FireForge platform to really connect in what solutions you're looking at. It will be a lighter server right now to do some kind of exploration, but that's the goal of bringing in AWS. So if you have your own compute and your own cycles you would like to tie in, then you're more than welcome to. And the biggest part that we do focus in on, especially with industry conversations, is how can they bring to the platform itself the open data that they have that they're able to share with us, and then identify how they would like to work with the community in a clear and effective way, especially from a research angle. How is it an industry, fire tech, able to support this community? This might be big solutions like watch data where we're seeing them use the open APIs. So being able to identify those existing case studies to inform others on how we can set up existing collaborations.
That's great. I appreciate that. Just one quick follow-up is how do you guys have opportunities for small businesses to participate in proposals that you guys submit so we can maybe bring something unique to the table? You know, we don't have a lot of staff, so we don't write a lot of proposals ourselves.
Right, absolutely. That's also a part of that expert networking that we're hoping for as well. So we can find ways to enable the community to list, are you interested in partnerships? Are you interested in proposals? And being able to list those out to enable those collaborations. And we also have working groups that are focused on being able to scale and sustain these innovations. So if you have a Pathfinder project where you're wanting to pitch it as we're looking for proposal opportunities to extend this work, that's where we can also utilize that think tank to kind of ideate on other partnerships to tap into for your work.
That's great, Claire. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Thanks, Claire, for the great presentation. You mentioned the ability to tie in with FireForge to AWS. Do you also envision the ability in the future to tie into some of the access assets through the NSF for researchers that already have allocations on some of the NSF-funded supercomputing centers?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is where we're looking at that first prototype being through the National Research Platform for that tap-in. You can see when we're launching that compute, you're selecting the cycles you need, but if you have cycles already, just being able to have that as a selection of your workflow and connection with your identity. The biggest piece on the tech side would be, how can we match the key cloak that we have within Access so then it can just automate the login process and not burden you with another space to authenticate yourself in.
Okay, great. Well, now for our last presentation by Marissa Christensen from Climate Wildfire Institute.
Sorry, one more.
Great. Thank you. All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Marissa Christensen. I'm the Executive Director of the Climate and Wildfire Institute. We're a fairly new organization. We were founded in 2022, really as a response to the gaps we were seeing between all of the good work that we've heard about here today and that you all do, and our decision makers who are responsible for public policy. We were funded through the state of California initially, and so today I'm going to sort of switch gears from what we've heard about from a very technical perspective to, okay, now how do we get there and what do we do with that information? So, Climate and Wildfire Institute, we're here to speed solutions to the era's most pressing climate and wildfire challenges. And the way that we personally do that is through a consortium model where we really prioritize collaboration. We heard earlier about from Nick about a really good example of a project and some resources that I think could be useful to many different people, and getting all of those folks access to or just awareness of is always a challenge. We heard from Claire about the Wildfire Data Commons, which is an awesome leap forward. And certainly a holistic view in that you have a kind of marketplace and community focus. But again, how do we make sure that all of that collaboration does happen, right? And that people are connecting to it, and that at some point that's all translated to our decision makers. So the main purpose that we have is really convening. Sorry, let me go back. We convene folks like you, as well as fire practitioners, as well as public policy makers, to try to knowledge share and hopefully set research agendas together. And why is this important? Why does this matter? Well, as you heard from Tim, and you put it, I wrote this down, you put it so diplomatically when you talked about the folks in the federal government who have been separated from their jobs. I think I might take a moment to speak less diplomatically about that. We are losing institutional knowledge. You and I spoke about this. We're losing institutional knowledge in these people, hundreds of years worth, right, combined. And as we go forward into this moment in time when wildfire, along with every other climate catastrophe, is growing in both speed and destruction. And so we are at this time when we can't afford to lose knowledge and sharing of knowledge at any level of any kind. But that's indeed what's happening. And as we look across the data landscape, we see that there's a lot of good data there. The knowledge that we need to address these issues exists, but it's all very siloed. Folks are heads down. We're all heads down on our own projects, on our own works, on our own deadlines. And it's hard to take space and time to connect to others and figure out how to build on one another's work instead of reinventing the wheel. It's almost like you need an organization that's entirely dedicated to just that, which is what we are. And so I will offer to you that we are at this moment in time where our current administration certainly seems to, at a minimum, not consider humanity and planet, and at a maximum, actually, maybe wants to destroy both. And with that, this administration is imposing on us a scarcity mindset. In the nonprofit, academic, research realms, we are all after the same pots of money. We all get a little bit of sharp elbows sometimes. And right now, those pots of money are shrinking even more drastically than they normally do. And so I think we're being forced into a position of scarcity, but instead we have an opportunity to demonstrate our resistance by valuing each other and collaboration. And that's tough, right? So I'm going a little bit off script here, but also just wanting to really name this moment and really underscore why, social connection and collaboration is important. So going back and building a little bit on what Claire said, you hit a lot of the same points around really data and demonstration. We do demonstration projects as well, where we look to de-risk some of the new innovations and technology that's available to practitioners. And we have the same values that you all do with open data, transparency, data sovereignty, certainly. I have mentioned here landscape reviews. I don't mean geographic landscape. I mean actually coming together to identify where the gaps in our knowledge may be. And so in all of this coming together, through our convenings, we have a major convening every year and then a bunch of smaller ones that are a little bit more focused. And we do revolve around a workshop style where everybody is participating and helping to shape the conversation. And so what we're hearing from folks is exactly what we've heard already, which is there's a huge appetite for collaboration. There's kind of the existing data and knowledge that we need, but it's hard to know where it is. Sometimes it's slow to access. We need data openness and coordination to drive innovation and open new markets. And to do all of this, we need sustained and consistent investment in wildfire technology and solution. So I'm just going to skip right through this. So this is just a timeline of how we pull folks together. and a sample of kind of the types of topics that we may focus on. A couple years ago, it was intentional fire. And earlier this year, it was a wildfire data workshop that was focused around insurance reform that actually reforms risk modeling and takes those models into consideration in plan pricing, looking at urban planning and maybe some of the new innovations that we need in land use, zoning, and building materials, particularly in the WUI. And public health and smoke. These are all areas that are hugely important and I know are central to everybody's thinking in this room, but have gotten very little energy from the public sector in terms of advancing real solution and starting to modify policy to accommodate just a more effective path forward. So the key themes that are arising right now for us from the folks like you, and I do hope to see you at some of our future convenings, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So data availability to data impact, and this is really what we're talking about here today, right? How do we take all of this good work and actually make sure it gets to where it needs to go? How do we get that in front of our elected officials? How do we get that in front of the fire chiefs that are on the ground in these WUI areas? And if it is in front of them, how do we make sure that they understand it and that it's operable and that it's useful? So creating kind of that feedback loop within these convenings and within building these communities and marketplaces, that's what we're seeking to do, is make sure that innovation and research is actually field responsive. Trust, transparency, and data governance, you heard this from Claire. There's a lot of disparate kind of ways of getting to the data that one might need and standardizing that. And ensuring that it remains open and accessible is a huge piece of what we do, certainly as a nonprofit. And that's not to say that the private industry and proprietary information doesn't have a space, but certainly wanting to prioritize that this is readily available and widely available. Community communication is a huge issue as well. My own experience from the LA fires, I do live in Los Angeles, it was evident that some of the technology platforms that were available to our decision makers fell well short of what they needed to be, certainly in timing. And it was even more evident that communicating out to the public effectively and clearly and with confidence was a massive issue. I mean, show of hands, are there people here from LA aside from myself? Okay, so everybody in LA received a text message at one point that we all had to evacuate, all 10 million of us. And that was not the case. It was a mistake and it was corrected a couple minutes later, but there was a moment of mass hysteria. And that's the last thing any of us ever want to see in a disaster. That's when things go well south, and it's hard to recover. Luckily, it was quickly corrected. Most of us survived. But it really did underscore the fact that the translation of information that we do have at our fingertips may not actually make as much sense as it needs to for split-second decision-making and communication. It also underscored, sadly, a lack of public literacy in just wildfire. Never mind data, never mind technology, just wildfire. What are we dealing with? How does it work? What might the future hold as it sort of goes down its own path? And if you're missing those things, if you're missing public literacy, if you're missing good communication, then getting your government to change policy and be reactive in a way that will better save lives and property is a heavier lift. I don't know if you've all noticed, but our elected officials tend to make decisions from a point of popularity and reelectability rather than what is actually correct and true. And so I think as we all move forward down our very technical paths and our technical careers, it's hugely important to remember that collaborating with a group of folks or an organization that does have a way of communicating and has a big enough megaphone, a big enough platform to communicate is important in quite frankly, building a movement. I come from the field of water. I was in water conservation. I am in water quality still as a water quality control board member. And I have noticed a huge difference between water and fire. The water sector is hugely messy because water is a commodity and it's a scarcity. Fire, not yet a commodity, and certainly not scarce. And I've noticed there is a togetherness in this field that any other field, sort of environmentally and climate related, doesn't quite yet have. We all agree on what the right steps forward are. We all agree on wanting to see more good fire on the ground. We all know what types of solutions are available to us. That doesn't exist somewhere else, anywhere else. There is unity here. What we lack is a movement where we're bringing the public along to demand more funding, to demand better solutions and better access to information. So I've gone way off script here, so just bringing myself back to the actual presentation, we do have out of our workshops really a action plan for the following year that is based on what we've heard back from folks like you. And so this year, we are still very much focused on regional demonstration projects on the ground that sort of layer in all sorts of wildfire mitigations from just basic prescribed fire all the way up to de-risking and testing new tech or using new remote sensing like all of the satellites that we're hearing so much about these days. And then working with insurance companies to maybe take a small neighborhood, a small community, and figure out if there's a way to reform their policy practices with a different risk model. And we're also very much focused on continuing to grow our partnerships and understanding what you all are working on so we could maybe better matchmake between the network that we have of practitioners and policymakers. So one of the examples that we have of an on-the-ground demonstration project, which I think has actually turned out to be quite innovative but basic, is centered in Tahoe. We are part of the Moore Foundation's Wildfire Resilience Initiative, which in part funds our Tahoe Sierra Wildfire Resilience Collaborative. And a pilot project that we are working on is, in Incline Village. If you're familiar with the area, it's a very well-to-do area. There is a high-end HOA that oversees a large condominium development. And we are looking at community hardening, home hardening. We're bringing in BurnBot to do some mastication around a perimeter. We're doing prescribed fire kind of in a further perimeter. And then we're looking at local policy and what needs to change to incentivize folks to be able to do their own home hardening. And we're working with an insurance provider to actually update their risk modeling and innovate on how they offer cost savings to customers through just a better reflection of the efficacy of mitigation. And the idea, of course, is to demonstrate this as a successful case study, look at replicability and transferability across other geographies. So why CWI? That's a question that I get frequently. And the only answer I have is that we're a consortium. It doesn't have to be CWI, it can be any consortium, any collaborative body that is resourced to actually push ideas and innovations forward. And that's because these other institutions that we work with or that we may be a part of just don't have space for collaboration. We're all encouraged through all of our work to be collaborative, but at the end of the day, we don't have resource, we don't have time to actually prioritize it. And so I've found, in looking kind of at this list of universities, government agencies, for-profit companies, individualized nonprofits, really no single one of them has what they need to prioritize collaboration. And so my hope is that CWI and other organizations like it, because we're not the only ones like us that exist, continue to grow and expand and offer resource and help capacity build for all of the partners that we have and help kind of unite all of our agendas to be able to move forward with one voice and one focus. So this is just a sample, a cross-section of why a consortium, of why open data and a kind of singular data hub or data commons is so important. You see kind of a breakdown here of data users and data producers. Some of those data producers are also data users. And this is just a tiny snapshot of everything that's out there. We've done sort of a cursory landscape analysis of all the organizations, universities, startups that are in and around the wildfire space, and this is not really even scratching the surface. And so in expecting every single one of these data producers to seek out and communicate individually with every single one of these potential users that could really benefit from their data, from their innovation, it's just not going to happen, unless they have a very well-developed, very well-resourced, very technical business development team. It just ain't happening, right? So with that, that is my soapbox. That is our purpose, and we hope to be able to sort of uncluster and or I should say unmess up this cluster. I was going to use the F word, but I guess I'll refrain from that. We are trying to create connection, and I think more importantly than that, ease of connection. So with that, I will take questions. Thank you so much.
Great presentation and great panel as a whole. The part of your presentation that really resonated with me was the movement building piece. And as a far outside observer to most of the wildfire territory in the US, it seems that almost universally during an event and in the aftermath of an event, the political landscape's dominated by finger pointing and advantage seeking behavior. And I'm wondering what your theory of change is, because that ultimately is getting in the way of any kind of consensus.
Oh, I so agree. So there are two answers to that. I don't know that you can actually take the politics out of the politician. I mean, I think the type of person who goes after some of these offices, particularly in very large, urban, powerful, high-profile areas like Los Angeles, it's a particular mindset that's focused on power rather than public interest. But my theory of change is pressure, is good old-fashioned public and peer pressure. It works. And so if you can get the public to a point of attention and literacy on the issue, to start to really pressure and turn that finger back around to each of those decision makers, that is the only theory of change I have. That's the only thing that I think works, because you can't rely on those folks to make the right decision based on good data. They want to know that their public is going to applaud and vote for them again, and that they're going to get the big dollars for their next campaign, and so on and so forth. And so part of what happened in the example of LA with all the finger pointing is that the public was super scared. It was terrifying. I mean, it truly felt like the entire city was on fire. And we were hearing rumors of our water system broke and they ran out of water. The fire chief didn't get there fast enough and doesn't know what she's doing. The mayor wasn't even on site. And while all of these things might be things to contemplate, it had nothing to do with the rampage that we experienced. It was 100% wind-driven, and nobody could do anything. Couldn't fly a helicopter in 100-mile-per-hour winds. Our urban water system is made to fight a single structure fire for 1 hour. That's what a fire hydrant is linked to. And we had 2,500 homes burn. There's just no fighting that. And so I think while folks were able to finger point, government agencies were able to finger point at each other, particularly in LA, our government agencies don't play well together. There's a lot of friction. That was able to happen because the public did not understand the mechanics of the fire and what we were up against and what they were up against. So I think in an ideal world, in the utopia that I'm hoping for, people understand what they need to understand to call bullshit and to demand focus on the right issues.
One more question for Marissa, but we're going to open up to questions for Claire, Nick, and Marissa as well after that.
Make sure also that the microphone's on.
Yeah. Thanks for your talk. And
Thanks.
when you began to talk about the loss of knowledge, that really resonated for me, or the potential loss of knowledge,
Yeah.
I should say. So I just want to shamelessly promote a session that I've co-organized tomorrow afternoon at 4 on supporting earth scientists and science in a time of disruption. And part of what we're going to talk about is there's a lot of data rescue efforts underway, which is great, but sort of knowledge rescue. What can this community do to address exactly what you were talking about, to sort of try to rescue in creative ways, hopefully, the knowledge that we're at risk of losing with people who've lost their jobs and are sort of cast adrift. So, I would encourage people, if you're interested in this issue, we're going to try to be positive and, really talk about what can this community do that will be helpful and, positive, forward-looking. So I'm Steve Young, retired EPA, but I certainly would encourage, if that resonates for people, this will be an opportunity to talk about it tomorrow. So thanks.
I love that. Thank you for hosting that session. Data rescue and knowledge rescue, that's fantastic.
And I just want to make a comment. I think that this session might have opportunity for birds of a feather later today. I haven't figured out how to post that, but I think we should make it happen.
I guess maybe question for you, but I think you did mention that you have interaction with the insurance company. I think that's very important part of the process, because basically the general public is kind of a link to all these kind of disasters through insurance. Yeah, it's kind of some behavior change at a certain point actually driven by insurance company. So I'm curious, what is like, I know some insurance companies, they can simply just withdraw saying that we're not giving any people coverage in this area. Or some other insurance company, they probably will be, using different approach. So I'm just curious about, through your interaction, what kind of, signal or direction they are taking towards, this kind of, wildfire flooding events.
Thank you. I won't lie, we have a long way to go. But there are a few insurance companies out there that are starting to recognize that there are mitigations that a homeowner can do or that an entire community can do that do actually make a difference in risk. Their risk models are black boxes, so it's unclear how they already calculate these things in. But certainly, no matter how they calculate, they are looking at what their potential loss is, what their exposure in terms of their bottom line. But the few insurance companies that are coming around to it are very well positioned to apply some peer pressure. Again, it's the theory of change still, and to sort of lead the way. And what we're looking at are risk models that look at a community and figure out which of those structures are most likely to sort of explode into conflagration across the rest of the community. Which neighborhoods sort of are the most at risk for financial loss in terms of how many are insured and uninsured. And part of that is looking at the full fabric of not just one insurance company or one plan, but what is the mosaic, and how are those people being incentivized? And then the other thing we're looking at is, what if we set up a fund for home hardening, right? What if there was a way to help people pay for the thing that's going to keep them safe? Because that's really what stands in the way for a lot of folks, right? Money ends up being both incentive and the thing that can bring something to a grinding halt. So the hope is that through better evacuation routes, through better prescribed fire and scaling prescribed fire, and then incentivizing individualized home hardening, that soon enough, you have a fabric of a community that is more or less wholly resilient, and maybe that can lure some of the insurance companies back into a community that they previously thought was uninsurable. Because the last thing we want is, over the years, 1 million people to have lost their home with no financial way of rebuilding that generational wealth. That then becomes a trickle-down effect on the rest of our resources in the society. So it's imperative that we solve it.
Okay, Dave has his hand up. Go ahead, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Tim. I had a question for Nick. Is he still around?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, Nick. Dave Jones with Storm Center Communications. I was just wondering, I love the whole setup that you were talking about and how to serve public and fire and EM services as end users. We work with the All Hazards Consortium, which has a stakeholder base of about 45,000 people in the bunch of private sector organizations like food, fuel, communications, logistics, all that stuff, and private sector liaisons within state emergency operations centers. And I was wondering if you have used your network yet to compare it to what the new NOAA Next Generation fire system is observing. Have you heard of that system?
I have heard of that system, and we view these as really complementary technologies, that there needs to be a technology stack that goes all the way from the ground all the way up to space, including unmanned, staffed, and then satellite technologies that all stitch together, because they all get one piece of the puzzle, but you can't really get the full operational picture without stitching all those things together. And that's where groups like Claire's come together, where we can start to do these data integrations so that we have a comprehensive one touch point place where we can go for all wildfire intelligence data, that you don't have to hunt around and know, I got to go to this site for this data, I got to go to this site for that data, and hopefully I have it available in this state, but maybe I don't have it available in that state, et cetera, et cetera. So there are amazing technologies that are coming out. Earth Fire Alliance, thank you, as was referenced in Melissa's talk, is bringing on some really critical and interesting technologies. And bringing all these together into one place is going to, I think, be a game changer for wildfire intelligence in the future. It's just got to be done in a way that is equitable and accessible and universal, so that there isn't an environment of haves and have-nots.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're looking into this to see how the NGFS system, they detect hot pixels. So how can these hot pixels then relate over to your camera network and see if there's any smoke coming up, or are the cameras finding hot spots and smoke before NGFS is setting off alarms? So it's just sort of a point of information. That's some of the work that we're involved in, so we can turn around and then make video updates for people to just look at on their phones and all that stuff. They don't have to navigate a lot of technology, but we can leverage these great systems that are coming together and sort of put it into English for the public and for communities and decision makers to improve their situational awareness. Then when they get back, they can look at their systems and all that kind of stuff. But I'll follow up with you and also Claire. Of course, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Wildfire Cluster, so hopefully we can continue this dialogue into our monthly meetings and sort of get more detailed and dive into some of the stuff. It's really incredible. It's a great session.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks. I look forward to hearing from you.
Sure. Thanks.
Kathy Holder, I'm State Hazard Mitigation Officer for Utah. So I'm not in the science realm, but I very much take all the data from the science realm to try and help my state. And just, I was on the previous administration's Biden-Harris. Yes, I'm throwing politics, but I think politics need to be out of it. But Wildfire Mitigation Commission for the nation. And I commend all three of you that were talking in the work that you're doing. And on a national level, as we came together for that commission, and just a way to think about, and maybe as you pull together and try to pull together as communities, there are a lot of really great recommendations that came out of a very nonpartisan report with that, and with the recommendations that came with that report, because we knew Congress wasn't going to read our just under 400 pages necessarily, but they could reference the recommendations, which there were too many. We had hundreds of recommendations, had to bring it down to 44. But I guess what I would say, and with the different partners that are here, is as we each have our own organizations and entities, if we can take and try and find a way that we all meet together, because there are several other entities that are doing similar things that everyone is doing, and find a way to come together. And I think you could work very well to do that. And I'd be happy to tell you all the organizations that I know from across the nation that are doing some things. I think that will bring more power to this movement, and there is so much that needs to be done. So I just wanted to recommend that and have a conversation.
Hey, Kathy, sorry to break in here, but could you put your email address in the chat, or give it to somebody who's connected to put your email address in the chat? I'd love to follow up with you. And hopefully you can be a part of our wildfire cluster meetings that we have each month.
Hi, I'm Don Haas. I'm the Director of Teacher Programming at the Center for Climate Change education at the Paleontological Research Institution. And during the academic year, I host a program on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month called Science in the Virtual Pub. And I would love to have a panel discussion about this. I think the fall schedule is completed. I'm waiting for one more confirmation back for that. But the spring is wide open. So we start the fourth Saturday of January and go, or Thursday of January rather, at 7 p.m. Eastern, and go through the second Thursday in May. And if you just Google Science in the Virtual Pub, I'm pretty sure you'll find it, and I can get folks my email addresses as well, and maybe touch base with some folks during the coffee hour in a few minutes to find the right folks for it. Thanks, this was great.
I have just one comment. I am Carla McAuliffe, Senior Education Researcher at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies. It's sort of a mouthful. It's a nonprofit, primarily NASA-funded, NOAA-funded, NSF-funded, that makes curriculum materials, does professional development for teachers, and all of this stuff. I mean, my mind is spinning on ways to use those cameras educationally. So don't forget the K-12 component. Talk about a huge peer pressure group, especially the high schoolers and middle schoolers that are going to be living with the decisions that are happening now. And so anyway, I'm sort of a little bit of a outlier in this group, but am happy to be more involved in the wildfire cluster. And maybe some folks here might want to come over to the education committee, which has lost an awful lot of folks this year. Sorry to say.
We're coming up on time. We're at a coffee break. We can continue this conversation, and I'm going to be here all week. So I'd love to talk to more people, but I know some will be leaving. But let's keep going. Here's Claire.
Thank you. I just wanted to quickly note back, especially for the education angle, we definitely take that into strong consideration as we're thinking about these platforms. And we actually have something that we're working towards with data challenges. We've done these before for other domain science specific categories, but we're going to have one in October. And the last one we had, it was 48 undergraduates that were able to take real access to a data challenge, and the solution was actually uploaded into the national data platform so it could be reused by others in the future. So we definitely work with educators to make sure there's space for this kind of experience and really empowering the next generation of students and the workforce to be educated in these things.
So also Wildfire Cluster, we have monthly telecons with people here and usually a presentation. And I just wanted to close with a discussion about the governance issue. I've been following particularly California wildfire policy for about a decade, and it has been one of the most disciplined, focused government actions I've ever experienced. People are serious, nonpartisan, and delivering incremental results where every year there are elements of the task force that deliver concrete changes. And the LA fires have driven, this year's changes are wildland interface issues where every policy is talking about it, and it is a remarkable collaborative network. And I see CWI was a manifestation of a hole that was identified 6-7 years ago, where we did not have the data science support that was needed to create public interest policy. And I think that is a manifestation that has been, there was a collective demand. CWI was coalesced, and similarly, Wildfire and the Oregon Hazards. These are entities that were specifically identifying holes in the system that were being filled with public interest solutions. And so I am actually, the wildfire space has made me more optimistic than I think than I was a decade ago, frankly. So anyway.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So optimistic.
Well, yeah. So I'm also highly unrealistic, and and the job market is great for data scientists right now. So like I can lie to myself too. No. Okay, so with that, let's keep the conversation going. I think we definitely should have a birds of the feather today, and hope to see you all for the rest of the conference and participate in the Wildfire Cluster. It's a great community.